All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. And this is actually take two. This has been an adventure. So today's guest, you guys read the title, you know who we've got. We've got Willem Avenant going to be checking in with us. We've got a big announcement today on the plans and what is going down. Let me get him going. So take two, the funny thing, let's jump right into that one. The Chasing Waypoints podcast has been going on now for 3 years. And in all of those years of recording, we can officially say now hundreds of episodes. Well, we finally had a corrupted file that completely ruined an interview. A great chat that Willem and I had a couple of weeks back that was getting ready to go. And I was like loading it up. And then all of a sudden, why does it sound like we're underwater? And rather than throw all the equipment out the window, I laughed about it. I hit up Willem. Here we are, Sunday morning. You guys are going to be hearing this a little bit later. It is 3:45 in the morning, and we are recording this episode on the same day. So much for being prepared. But hey, you know what? It is a lot of fun. It is the world of the unknown, so you never know. So let's get working our way on here. Let's see how we can get him inviting a friend to join. We're going old school. We're not leaving this to chance. We are going to do this correctly. We'll send that one over to him. So for some of those of you playing the home game, you may have noticed we had actually changed it up a little bit. And I was calling people directly, and that's what we've been doing. But, you know, this time around, not sure what happened. And it was not good. So we're going to wait for Willem to join in here in just a second. And then we'll get everything, we will get everything going. Waiting for him to log in. So how's everybody doing? Where are we riding today? Huh? Let's get the tags going. I want to see what everybody's doing. I got to work today. That's part of the show. You know, Friday, Saturday, get those days off to be able to travel to the events. A lot of events coming up. This little one, Dakar Rally, about to get started here in a few days. Kind of nice that they slid the starting date about 5 days. It'll give a chance for people to go spend the holiday, at least Christmas this time around. Won't be able to do New Year's. So waiting on that. Got a lot coming up. Even a new segment. That's right. We've got a new segment coming on to the show. We're going to be spot checking in. It is going to be the NAR Files with Gnarly Dave. So look forward to those in the future. Got a few of them already. We'll be sprinkling them in. But with that being said, I think we have Willem on the phone. Willem?
That is affirmative, man. Affirmative.
So I had a great intro for the first go around, and I'm doing the intro right now. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. You know, 3:45 in the morning, the day of the episode. I honestly can't be mad. 3 years of doing this, and this is only the second time I have an issue with an episode. So
you know what? That's just like it's all part of the journey, right? Now we actually have a story to tell about how it started.
I know, right? It's not always smooth.
No.
So
no, because I was trying to remember everything we talked about. I was like, man, I can't really remember everything we talked about. So it'll be like something completely new.
Yeah, it was funny. I was trying to listen to the episode and just like, is there any way I can save this? Any way? And it just doesn't. I mean, it sounds like, you know, AI did it in its early stages, you know, when the voice wasn't as smooth and didn't like, no, it was just, well, I sent you that audio clip. I was just so unimpressed with it. But, you know, hey, we'll, I guess, you know, it's part of the journey, right? Like you said.
Exactly. It's just going to be like, oh, that time when we wanted to announce it and then we had to do it again because we tried. Like, it also shows you that the best laid plans, like, it doesn't matter. You know, you can lay the plans as best as you want. it's about adapting to the situation in the given moment.
Yeah, and making it happen. Meanwhile, I'm in scramble mode, and I'm like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to record. I'll have them send me audio messages, or I'll have them do this, and I'll record an intro. I have it all upload. Literally, I just need to drag and drop the conversation in to the episode, and I'm like, we're going to get this. This is going to happen. But yeah. So,
thank you, man. I know it sucks to be up as early in the morning, so it's great because it's great that it's happening actually because we've got load shedding here, so we've got a lot of the times of the day we don't have power, and when we don't have power, we don't have cell phone service. So
interesting.
Things have worked out just right. Yeah. Well, it's like the towers used to have backup batteries, and then it's been so many years of power outages that the backup batteries just stopped working. Yeah. So it's like, it's a pretty, you get used to it, but I mean, it's now been 5-6 years of continuous, they call it load shedding, but they basically cut off sections. They have different stages. So that, because if the grid shuts down completely, that's a huge problem. It takes like 2 weeks to reboot the grid. So they cannot let the grid kind of shut down. So it's like if there's too many people drawing electricity, then they do what they do call load shedding. And they just basically have phases where you just don't have electricity. So it's like the closest thing we will have in the US is like rolling blackouts, basically.
Yeah. It's interesting you're saying that. And so I am familiar with the term load shedding only because of my day job for a certain electric vehicle manufacturer whose CEO happens to be from South Africa. Mm-hmm. And so it's that term shows up in the on the back end when the car's having issues with its 12 volt and it starts load shedding things to be able to conserve itself. So it's funny how that's in two completely different, areas, but there's a common there.
Yeah, I think the one thing that people can learn from the show is that if anybody uses the word load shedding, they've either been to South Africa or they're South African.
They fully understand the ramifications of what that is.
They understand the pain.
Yeah. So speaking of the journey, so you're in South Africa right now. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so last time you and I spoke, Victor, I was in the US and we had a nice long conversation. Now I am in South Africa training, and it's like super today. It's like 40 degrees Celsius, like, where I live up in the mount, or it's like a desert area of South Africa, very similar to Arizona or southern Utah. Lots of I think southern Utah has been the closest to the Karoo that I've seen. It's like big mountains and vistas and shrubland, but it's desert as well. So that's kind of where I am from as a kid. I grew up here and learned to ride bike here, so it's kind of my happy place. And because I grew up here, I know so many people. And in South Africa, we don't have like BLM land or open land. Pretty much all land here is privately owned, which obviously there's a lot going on politically about land restitution and stuff like that. But unless it's a national park, the land would be owned by somebody. So it's very hard. And I always say Americans or people living in America are actually super privileged. I know that, it's a big fight. We're fighting about getting access or keeping access to a lot of riding areas. Yeah. But it's still way, way more than any of us in South Africa has. So people have this idea of Africa, it's wild, but it is wild, but it's owned by somebody.
Yeah, one way or another, which is, Texas is like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I only recently found that out. Exactly like what you're saying was the same exact thing. Is like, I thought, Texas, you could ride wherever you want. It doesn't matter, just be respectful and da-da-da. And then after I talked to who was it? It was Alex from Conflict back when he was around, or when Conflict was around. And he's the one that told me, so no, all the land out here is privately owned. So you have to have, or the majority of the land is privately owned. So you have to know the landowners, or there's areas where they do they have multiple acres and you kind of buy in. You have like a monthly payment, and that allows you land access and to be able to do that. But it's not as, to go find an enduro trail and do these things, like it's on somebody's property. It's not going to be other than the fire road. So that's interesting. I didn't know that South Africa was like that.
Yeah, so I'm super privileged because I've got thousands of miles of like area to ride, and that to me is like, it's probably played a big role in, you know, me riding as much as I do today and loving it so much, because there's always a place to explore, and because it's still a small community, you know, people are like, oh, sure, you know, as long as you ask permission and as long as you're respectful, it's not a problem. So yeah, I'm out here training, and I think the point of this episode is to kind of share to the listeners what we have planned for the next year. And yeah, that's basically that, you know, after spending pretty much my entire grown-up life and a lot of my child life dreaming of Dakar, I finally decided to pull the trigger for various reasons. And, you know, we're aiming for Dakar 2025. It's super early. I mean, it's 17 December of 2023, so I'm sure there's people going like, what the hell is this guy on about? It's still a year away, you know. So the process for Dakar, if you're serious about it, it starts pretty much 18 months to 24 months before the time.
Yeah.
And one of the things we discussed at length is finding a team and finding a bike ahead of time, because you can't decide you want to go race and then just say, okay, I'm coming in June. You have to have all of those things lined up. So I've spent many years looking at the Dakar, like living the Dakar, dreaming about it, and intensely following it, doing interviews around Dakar time every year, writing articles about Dakar. And I've kind of put together a plan that I believe gives me the highest possible chances of success while still being the Dakar and while still needing a whole lot of good luck and support. I feel that, you know, what I put together is kind of going to be the road. We're calling it the Decoding Dakar. And the idea would be to say, okay, if we follow this roadmap, you know, can we get to Dakar? Can we actually do it? And I'm very excited to kind of share that whole journey with you guys. And I think very often we focus on the 2 weeks of the race and not of the 18 months before the race. And it has been one of the things that I've struggled with the most, was finding the relevant information in a palatable format that, you know, I could easily understand. So part of the journey is going to be to build up this, let's call it, online resource where we document the journey and where we say that, okay, Victor, if you want to go to Dakar, you know, if you're serious about it, if you really want to go and you just don't just want to dream about it, this is what it's going to take realistically. And that's the plan. That's the dream. You know, that's kind of a way that I see myself giving back to the community and also growing the community, because we are hoping to get the message out to a wider audience. I mean, your audience are definitely the rally audience, and they have already a really good idea, but we want to spread the word a bit further so that we can stimulate interest in the sport. And that's also a lot of what I'm doing next year. Is we're doing a lot of schools and training camps for absolute beginners, just to kind of stimulate them into doing some races like the Baja Rally, so that we can get guys on the bikes, because, you know, we're pretty much the last generation that like riding bikes. You know, we need to get some more people into it.
You know, that's very interesting thing. I remember working at BMW a few years back. That was the thing, that the newer generation, like just in motorcycles in general, were not, you know, you have the little niche markets like the cafe racers and things like that. But as far as dirt bikes go and the younger generation, like that group is getting smaller, where it used to be everybody had a three-wheeler in the family. You know, they had these things, and now it's like, yeah, you're right. It's just kind of been shrinking and shrinking. And then add on top of that the whole road book thing. You know, there's less people that maybe are not familiar with that. You know, how do we even navigate? So it's awesome to hear, you know, yeah, part of this plan is training and helping people get into at least the first step, which is a road book. Yeah, so that's that. This is when you approached me about it and we started talking about it. That I thought was like, I think that's the most important thing. Is like, this is all of the steps that it takes to go to the Dakar, and there is no road book to it. And I'm as we're talking about this, I'm thinking like, it'd be awesome is to actually make a road book and the kilometers be like the months.
That would be amazing. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Great. Yeah, that would be also, we could like frame it afterwards, and that's like, and that's one of the crazy things, right? Like the amount of scheduling and I mean, I'm not saying that you can't just decide I'm going to go up and do Dakar. I'm sure there's people that succeed in doing that. I'm doing it from, I guess, my personality perspective, which is, calculated step by step, the best possible way that I can approach it. So by no means do I want to dissuade anybody by saying, "Oh, you'll never get there," if you just decide to go on a whim. I know people do that as well, but I'm more very systems oriented, and I want to, and I think that's a big part of the rally mindset is having checks and balances in systems. So in November I had to plan out 2024, and it's like my schedule for 2024 is full. It's crazy. It's like every week, every month there's something that you have to do or attend, and that's part of not just the Dakar stuff, but the planning of how you're actually going to make it and how you're actually going to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's that's exactly the long-standing thing that we've known about road books, that, or rally races, right? You can be a phenomenal rider and not really know how to navigate, and it's going to cost you a lot of time. Or the other way around is you could be a really great navigator and then not be so hot at riding, and that's going to cost you. So you have to find that balance. So like what you're saying is the same thing. It's like there is a balance, Yes, you could throw together a program last minute and do all this stuff, but you're going to be the guy that shows up to Saudi, currently, because that's where it's being hosted, without your boots. If you try and rush that process versus if you take the longer approach and look like, I'm going to plan this out month over month. These are the goals. These are the next steps. It's a much better, I think it's much more attainable. Like way more people would be able to follow your recipe and what you're planning versus somebody that like, hey, it's Q3 2024. How about we go to the Dakar? That it just doesn't. That's if the ASO and ASO even says, sure, come on down. Yeah,
that's if all the chips fall into place, and I think, but the funny thing is the way that you've just put it, it kind of describes me as a racer, as far as, I have to do everything possible to give me the best possible chance, because I am not what I would call a naturally gifted athlete or a very fast racer. And your previous statement or your preceding statement is exactly why I absolutely love rally, is because navigation has brought us this great equalizer. There is no other sport in the world where average riders, or let's call it riders that are serious about their sport, can rub shoulders with the best of the best in the world. Like, it's going to Dakar is like going to the Olympics. And in any other sport discipline, you can only dream about, speaking to the heroes of the sport. Whereas in rally, it's like, okay, I'm on the start line of with the heroes that I saw as a kid, or even today. I mean, and those guys are all really good, friendly guys that's happy to give you advice. I've reached out to so many pro racers, and every single one of them had really good advice. But the key thing is they had time. They were willing to talk to somebody that wants to go and do Dakar. And that's what makes the sport so awesome. Because if somebody has a bad day and you're having a good day, you feel like you're competing with the best of them.
Yeah. Well, and that's, that is definitely one of the things that I've seen. It's the information sharing, even just go all the way back to the purpose of this episode and what you're planning is to be able to create this roadmap to how to get to the Dakar, what it takes to get in there and participate. Not a lot of people. I mean, it's points on navigation, tips and tricks and things like that. This is one of the biggest things that I've seen in the sport is that everybody's willing to help everybody. Yeah. Once you're out on the road, once you're out there and there's a tricky waypoint, they may not be so forthcoming. It's just kind of part of it. That's the green.
It depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Green to checkers, well, yeah, you're right. It depends on the group, because if you're the top 10% that they're there, to win and overall the thing. Yeah. But if you're one of the guys that's there, you're riding and you're just out there having fun, then yeah, you're going to share that. But no, in no other sport does that happen. Everybody's looking for that secret line, that line that's faster to the next VCP. That's not going to, that nobody else will take, because that's going to get them minutes. It's a very different mentality.
There's this famous story. I'm not famous, but I'm sure it's happened more than once. That Mike Johnson from Rallycomp is very well known. That if he ever gets to a point where he has to open a waypoint and two people rock up at the waypoint at the same time, and then there's actually a video clip from Coast to Coast where himself and Oswaldo Lara keep on. No, you do it. And they couldn't get to a point. So they're like, okay, rock, paper, scissors. And the one that loses has to open the waypoint, and this is like caught on camera. And it's like, that's the essence of the sport. Like, we're still competing, but you're going to push the limits to wherever you can, I've done it. I have old, what's his name? Mumford was kind enough to open a waypoint for me that, in the Baja Rally, if he didn't open the waypoint for me, I wouldn't have done as well as I did in the Baja Rally last year. So, that was, but I was able to convince him to do it. I've been very thankful. So, Mumford, thank you, man. I've been thankful ever since. But actually, if it comes to opening waypoints, it's all about your bargaining skills. I think it's like, what can you offer the guy in return?
Yeah, exactly. But, and or if you're not switching, okay, I'll open this one, but you get the next one.
And then you just never catch, or you
and then you
make
never
sure
see
you
him
never
again.
catches you.
I know, right? I mean, there's, and that's the great part about it is that there's just so many stories that revolve around rally and road books and being out on the course, that I've been privy to hearing. I mean, epic battles between people that know how to navigate and people that know the terrain and the land, and it's so varied. It's not about the wallet. It's not about who's willing to pin it the longest, in sections where they shouldn't be, riding dangerously or riding over their head. It's not about that. It like you said, the road book becomes the great equalizer. It doesn't care how fast you are, it's, and
the consistency. I think the biggest thing that I've seen in races all over the world, is this thing where somebody has a bad day and then he quits, and I mean, I have good stories about this and bad stories, because I'll always be the guy that comes and sits with you and convince you to just do just one more stage. Because I think it's an American saying, I don't know who coined it, but to finish first, you first have to finish, right? And you just, because rally is so varied, you just never know. I've seen guys be third or fourth or fifth in major rallies, and 2 days ago, he packed up his bike and he was ready to go. And I was like, you don't know what's going to happen with the competitor ahead of you. Like, first of all, it's not that competitive, so put that out of your mind. But if you are that competitive, if you are really so competitive that you feel like you don't have a chance, and I mean, obviously it's not the right sport for you, but first, just carry on going. Just, the old rally ethos was nothing mattered except your start time of your stage the next morning. Nothing else mattered. And the only deadline, the only rule was you had to be at the start line when you were called. and that's it. And that's where these stories of guys riding through the night and, fixing unfixable things come from, because, the sport has become a little bit more disciplined and a little bit more rules, but that's the essence of it. That's how it was in the old days. So if somebody just carries on going and, more often than not, they end up in a really good position. So it's that tenacity, that consistency thing of just going, even if you have a bad day, there's this thing where one of the toughest races I've done, I think, was in the 2019 Kalahari Rally in South Africa. It was a 6-day race, 5-day race, and we didn't have rally comps, we didn't have any kind of devices, so you didn't know if you hit waypoints or not. So you basically only had your road book and you had a GPS with some waypoints loaded on it. But the distances and the terrain, the organizer just didn't want people to finish. His game was to see how few people can finish, and he wanted to make it really hard. And we had sand and dunes and thunderstorms, and I remember some of us falling asleep on a 500-600 kilometer liaison, like on the bikes. It was hell, and so many things was happening to me and my team. I had a Land Rover that blew up. My wife and my daughter got attacked in one of the towns, and it was just, there was just stuff like you were in it, but it felt like you were drowning or I was drowning. And then in that moment, you as a rider are fighting with all of this stuff. And up until that point, or still, I felt like, I'm like, this is, life's unfair, right? I'm dealing with all this stuff and it's just, why me? Like, why am I? And then after the race, and I thought of quitting a lot of times. Like there's this one section where I was actually doing great. I was leading the stage and I made a stupid mistake because I didn't mark my roadbook properly. That effectively cost me the position completely. But, the org guy actually phoned me and they're like, are you ready to quit? Because we can see you stuck. I was stuck down the side of a mountain. And I was like, just give me I'm not ready yet. And I was sitting there bemoaning my own lot. And then I heard a bike in the background. And the long and the short of it is I got off course and I went down the side of a mountain. And by the time I realized that, listen, a car can't ride here, which is where I'm now. I'm clearly off course. It was too late, and I couldn't. If I turn up to go back up the face of the mountain or the cliff, there was this dry grass, so there was no way that the bike could gain traction. So I was completely stuck. Yeah. And at this point, I'd now pulled my bike halfway up the mountain, like literally just dragging it, and then far in the distance, I could hear a bike, because at this point, I had no idea how far off route I was. And I ran up the mountain. I could see the dust, and I was like, okay, that's the route. At least I know where the route is. So I need to start going there. And then for about 30 minutes, there was just nothing. I was like, oh, damn, that was the last guy. And then as I was walking back to my bike, ready to call it in and, push the button or whatever, like crying in my helmet or whatever, I hear this bike like coming, and I think he was a Belgian guy that had quit the race, but he was there all the way from Belgium. So he still rode the course, but he wasn't in the race. So he was like way in the back, just enjoying the scenery. And I stopped him. I was like, listen, man, I don't know who you are. I know what your story is, but you have to help me. There's just you don't have a choice. Please get off your bike. I just need you to help me pull my bike up here, because there's like a lip at the end of the mountain. So I pulled the bike up, and now I had to start catching up. And eventually I caught up a group of 5-6 guys. One of them was James Alexander, which actually did Dakar a few years ago from Botswana. And, I managed to finish that stage that day, which was insane to me. I was like, there was no way that I was ever going to finish the stage. Now, this is on top of everything else. And after the race, speaking to people, you hear all of these stories of everybody else's trials and tribulations. And that race had taught me that the thing of rally is we're all actually fighting to survive. If you have a smooth race where nothing goes wrong, that's the times you have to cherish and enjoy. But the rule is that assume everybody around you is fighting the same fight of survival. They have their own demons, they have their own problems. And all of a sudden, where you are in the field doesn't matter, because the probability of somebody else dealing with something that's much worse than you is actually quite high. They're just not talking about it. And that to me was like a huge eye opener. I'm like, always assume everybody's struggling. And that changes your way that you approach a rally, or at least when you think of quitting, and that's my thing. Like, even if you finish dead last, it doesn't matter. Just finish the stage. Start the stage and finish the stage. Doesn't matter where you do it, because the next day the deck is shuffled again completely.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting that how you say, everybody has their struggles, and you may have, what I'm sure at the bottom of that hill, down that mountainside felt like 6 hours, it could have been, if it was 20 minutes, right? And just thinking rally comp penalties, at most of the rallies here in North America, it could have been 20 minutes. Well, anybody that followed the course could have struggled to find a waypoint and then decided to skip it. And even though they had a quote unquote clean day, right? No incidents, no downtime with the bike, no nothing. They're already in a 20-minute deficit, and they didn't even they didn't have to drag their bike anywhere, so
nothing went wrong for them.
Nothing went wrong, but the simple fact that they missed the waypoint, or maybe they didn't miss it and didn't have to skip it, but they struggled to find it. Well, there's 5 minutes, and then they struggled to find the next. So you're right. It's really, once you start hearing the stories back in the bivouac, you could almost say like, well, there's 5 minutes and there's another 10 minutes and then all of a sudden you didn't lose as much time as you thought you did. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick. We have got some news for you guys. So Mira Activewear, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the brand. You should be. You've seen their handiwork if you've seen pictures of Happy Dave and a few of our other riders here in the States, but also in the Dakar Rally, a lot of the top pros wearing their windbreakers, custom made rally suits and things like that. They have been phenomenal. They are a very, very high quality product. Awesome printing, design team, everything. But the reason we're interrupting this episode is they have got a fundraiser and promotional raffle going on right now between now and February. You want to get on over there. So you can purchase a limited edition Mira bandana set. So 3 special designs. That will get you entered into the contest for a grand prize of a full rally suit. So check out all the rules and limitations, all that fun, all that jargon. Get on over to the website. Link is in the description. And let's get back to the episode.
Exactly that. 100%. Yeah. And then sometimes you're like surprised, you're like, oh, so yeah, it's not over. Is it PC? Is it allowed to say it's not over until the fat lady sings, or is that wrong? Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, I don't even know anymore. I feel like the audience would be okay.
For me, it's just the biggest value, or the biggest thing I've learned is it's never over until it's over, and you always have to push. And that, that I think the people, Honda might have started it. Somebody started this thing where once they started doing bad in Dakar, and there was no chance of them winning, they just kind of go home. They stopped racing. And to me, that was soul crushing. I was like, that's not part of that's not the rally ethos. Like, that's not, you have to finish the race, not just because you don't know what's going to happen. But I guess once you run into 24-hour penalties and stuff, then you're probably never going to make it up. But it's still the honor of saying I actually finished the race.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, because I think at that point you notice the difference, right? If it's factory Honda, you have corporate, or you have the team manager looking at it going, okay, well, we're going to have to expend these resources to be able to complete this. Like, we already planned to do so, but since we're not in the running, why? But then the competitor, the athlete, the guy that they hired has that mentality, has the, no, there's no way, like, I'm going to finish. But then that becomes the struggle, who has the horsepower. Yes, athlete, we know they want to win. They do. They go for the win. And the
That's the goal.
The next best thing is, if not winning, is a spot on the podium. And from the podium on down, it's finishing. Is just making sure that they get that finish line. So for the corporation or for the team manager, for all of that, they're just looking at it like, hey, we've reached the end of the rally. This is it. Yeah. There's no sense, we can save this, we can save time, we can save money, we can save the bike, we can do all of these things, and not have to do it. And it's just, it's just like, it's one of the challenges that, I guess as pro athletes that they have to face, I guess sometimes. I mean, I don't know. We'd have to talk
and balance, I guess, as far as, like you say, the resources and also the risk to the rider. And, there's a lot of, if we start talking about that and, actually kind of performing, I have heard a lot about, people, once you're out of the race, how you could affect the rest of the race for your teammates or for other people, because you could very easily still win stages, or you could just as easily lead people astray to give your teammates a bit of an advantage. So once that's a separate podcast we can have as a talk about the different strategic decisions that's made on a high level for rally racing. Because that's a whole that's a big can of worms. That's the thing, right? Sometimes you just need to make the right choices. Like, as a rookie, some of the worst decisions I've ever made was like entering in the wrong class, and you're like, oh, if I had entered that class, I actually would have had a podium in that class, but because I entered this class, I don't even feature. So there's so much you have to read the rule book. I'll say that much. If you plan to go and do a rally, make sure you read the rule book, because you have to use that to your advantage.
Oh yeah,
use anything you can.
Well, they have who is it? I remember seeing this. I think it was either Audi or it was at one of the past Dakars. They have somebody on the team that it's like their traveling lawyer, and that's their job to know every single rule. And when it comes to doing a protest or any of that stuff, it's like they're the guy. They have to cite the rules. They have to have present all the reasons. Like, it's literally, that's their job, is to literally just be there and litigate, whether or not they're allowed to unlock a little more horsepower on the car. And I mean, that was a big deal a few Dakars ago. But so one of the things, I mean, we kind of wrap up, but right now, standing in December 2023, going to December 2020 or January 2025 Dakar. Initially, what are some of the challenges that you see, and maybe what are some of the challenges that you've already resolved?
Oh man, so I would say
talk about a loaded question.
I'll try and keep it short, but I think the biggest challenge for me personally has been the qualification process, because I mean, very few people are asking the ASO, for qualification so far ahead. And for myself, I was like, guys, I feel that I have a CV that represents the rally ethos, and a big part of it was that the team I chose was that, it used to be that in Dakar, if you choose a good team, you kind of guaranteed your entry to Dakar, right? And it's also a big reason why I've waited so long, because I wanted to go with a really good team. And I wanted to be sure that I'm going to get selected. That to me must not be a question mark. And I had kind of signed up with the team in March of this year already with that as the understanding is, guys, here's my CV. You are the guys that has the experience. You the guys I'm paying. So is this fine? Are we good? Can I get to Dakar on the CV? And, it was no issue, no problem. Definitely you can. And then in October or November this year, the ASO had a meeting, and the ASO has actually changed their selection criteria for Dakar to a fully points-based system. It's only points that matter. There's no subjectivity. And based on the full points-based system, they only count for 25. They only count races after July of 2022, and obviously for 26 it will be July 2024. So I guess that's a 3-year, let's say 3-year gap.
Mm-hmm.
That they count your races, and then they only count certain points to certain races. So that's actually something, this is a completely side note, but something I'm busy with currently is I'm dealing with the ASO to get rally US or North American rallies of points towards Dakar. It's something I'm super passionate about, and I actually am having a meeting with them tomorrow, Tuesday this week, to take it further. But I want North American rallies to count towards the new system, which is a fully points-based system for Dakar. So the biggest challenge thus far was the, let's call it, emotional and financial repercussions of, okay, you now need to go and do another race this year, preferably a World Rally Raid Championship round, in order to get enough points, and they also won't tell you how much points. It's a question of the 130 bikes with the highest points are the 130 bikes that's going to get chosen. No discussion. Mm-hmm. So that to me has been a big challenge, and I'm currently resolving it. Hopefully on our next episode in January, I'll be able to share with you guys exactly what's going on and how that's going to work. But I have a lot of exciting plans. So that was challenge number one, I think, because it's that financially, I'm not a independently wealthy person. This is something I've saved up for many, many, many years, and even so now it's like, okay, I effectively have to use my Dakar funding to qualify, which wasn't the plan. That's, again, I'm sure this is a theme that you and I will be discussing throughout the year, is that even the best laid plans, get capsized. And that's the thing. I've when researching this process and researching the whole idea, I found more people that had decided or announced or planned to go to Dakar and never reached the start podium than I did people going to Dakar. And then those people that went, pretty much all of them finish, or most of them. It's most people that get to Dakar end up finishing because of the struggle, the real struggle to actually physically get there. So for me, I'm sure that's the whole point of this year, is to say, okay, let's make the best plan possible, and let's share with the listeners how these things pan out in reality. Sometimes things doesn't happen the way you plan them.
Yeah, like for instance, the debut pack, the announcement podcast.
Exactly. But we're rolling with it. You're sitting up there in the middle of the morning or night, and I'm here, like we made it happen. And I think that the best stories of this year is actually going to come from that. The real way to Dakar, and to not sugarcoat it. Like, I'm not. I want to be able to say this is actually on the ground how it's happening. So yeah, to answer your question in that sense, that challenge, to me it was huge. It was a bit of a blow, and just, even taking a step back before that, just deciding to do Dakar, Victor, it's one of the hardest things I've done, because it's a dream, but to act on a dream that is selfish. And to act on a dream that effectively, takes your entire life savings, and to act on a dream that, basically takes you away from your family for almost a year, it's not rational. And I get it. Dreams aren't rational. But at the same time, if you have to look at really physically doing it and what that takes, it's a massive commitment to push it through. And I had gone up and down in the month, and I spoke to a lot of people. You and I spoke. I've spoken to you. I've spoken to so many of my friends, where it's like, I go to bed one morning or one night and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do Dakar. And then you wake up and then it's just the next roadblock or the next challenge. And you're like, this isn't in the spirit of rally. This isn't what rally is about. Let's go and do Africa Eco Race, or let's go and do Morocco Desert Challenge, and I can do 10 Morocco Desert Challenges for the price of one Dakar. I can race rally for 10 years. So if it's making memories and if it's getting experience, then I'm lying to myself if I say I want to go and do Dakar for memories and for experience. So that emotional seesaw of literally not knowing which side to turn, and then making the decision of, okay, I've done it, I'm going to go, and then hearing that, oh, now you still have to go and do another qualifying round. That to me was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And then next morning I'm like, well, if it's easy to get to Dakar, everybody would be there. And you said it. I mean, it was amazing advice. But I mean, I think your words were that you're not going to be. Well, Dakar is not going to define you, but you are going to be defined by the Dakar. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there is only one race that matters. If this in our sport, in our world, it's only one. Yeah. So I can walk into a room and say I've done 10 Africa Eco races, and people will just be like, "Oh well, what's that?"
Yeah. What about the Dakar? Have you done the? It's like
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's a lifelong dream, but it's just the decision has been a challenge, to answer your question. So I would say up to now, the two big things has been the physical, the mental decision, anguish to make the call and decide I'm not backing down. And the next was the unexpected news of that if I really seriously want to qualify, and there's still no guarantees, right? They're like, you have to go and do this races or this race, that race, and then we'll see. So you have a sword hanging over your head. And that's part of the journey. That's the stuff that I'm hoping to share. So, we've got a very, very full year. We've got a lot of rally training. We're doing a big beginner class up in Colorado with School of Moto, which I'm super excited about. We'll do that in May. And then obviously the Baja Rally, I'm very heavily involved in. And, the team, after the successful year we had this year, it's amazing to see how everybody's coming together and the energy that there is out there for the Baja 2024 rally is, it's what you call it, it's contagious, the whole team, everybody's fired up and ready to go. And I get the feeling that Baja 2024 is going to be one that exceeds anybody's wildest expectations. It's going to be amazing. So between the rally schools, we're doing a rally school up in the north as well in Canada. I believe that is going to be probably around the same time as the Tulip Festival or the Touratech rally, so there will be a bit of clashing there. But the guys up in Canada are super supportive of American rallies, and they want to ride. So there's something up there called the Boreal Royale at the end of June. So we introducing road books to this event that was normally just a GPS event. So if anybody wants to go and do that, now there'll be an option to actually ride a road book as well. Yeah. So that's super exciting. Nice. And then in, I believe, September, we're still finalizing everything, but there will be a rally event or riding event school for adventure bikes, or more adventure bike oriented in South Dakota. Nice. So there's tons of stuff happening, which is amazing. You guys should please keep an eye out for the ADV Moto magazine coming out in January. I wrote an article in that covering basically how to get into rally in North America, and I list all the events. There's rallies in not just Mexico, but tons of events and underground things happening in the States and in Canada. So I think our aim, our goal is to get as many people on board as possible and make 2024 a bumper year for the sport, so that next year this time we can talk about how many new people got into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be the huge thing. And I think that I 100% agree with you, after reviewing the numbers, just what's happened in 2023 from the podcast side of it, growth wise, where, here in North America, obviously parts abroad as well in the world, like, yeah, the sport is growing, the interest is growing. So what you're talking about, like the plan, right, to have the schools, but also lay out your road to Dakar, all of these things, like it could not come at a better time, and that's, to the organizations, that are listening, and the guys that organize events, or that maybe thinking like, this is the year. So I think that 2024, like I say, is lay out those plans and think about it from the perspective of like, if I was new to this sport, how am I going to get in?
Exactly. And I think that in that regard, we're at a cusp of a revolution in rally riding in the US, for the simple reason that, people in America love to say, yeah, but there's so many rallies in Europe, right? The general quality of a European race is that you show up and there's 400 or 500 people, and you don't need, you might have a road book, but you almost don't need an Odo, because, it's just, there is no places to ride. I get this, there's places and stuff like the Ceres Rally, but these are all smaller, high density events on very, let's call it, defined roads, So if you're already a rally rider and you go and do one of these races, it's not like it's a challenge. There's a lot of people that want to do it, but it's almost a little bit too much and too easy as far as people is concerned. So America as a country, and as North America as a continent, yes, we have a few events, but that's more than we have in South Africa, and it's more than we have in in South America, and it's probably more than you have in Asia. And these rallies are high quality events. Every single rally, we can count them off, but Sonora is high quality, Baja is high quality, Kota is different, but a high quality. A Battleborn, I think, is going to be super, super exciting. I know Kent has been working very, very hard, and they're trying to go back to the roots of rally. Now, these are just the 4 events. Then we've got Dan Bart's SoCal Rally. There's at least 3 rallies I know of in North America. We've got Patrick's Coast to Coast, which, by the way, is a blow-away event. It is really, really amazing if you can ever make it down there. Then Todd Zacher on the East Coast is working on a rally, and he's got his roadbook events. So we take all of that, which in other rally schools, the School of Moto, and there's a few other events that's happening because people are just getting together and riding. I know that is it Chris out on your side of the world? He sometimes put together a few, like, just groups of people to ride. There's people out in Georgia way. Dave Black, I know, is getting heavily into it. So people are spreading the word. So we have events, enough high quality events. There's no excuse for anybody. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Off-piste adventures. The guys at Off-Piste are doing great work at just getting new lifeblood into the sport. So we have all of these things. And now we also have the rise of the digital roadbook, and the fact that you can just use your phone or a tablet or any other device to do it. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. So, it depends on, you are going to develop, and you're going to hopefully eventually spend thousands of dollars. But to start, to get into it and to get that rush and that feeling and that, that feeling of when you hit the waypoint and you get that butterfly effect, a flutter of butterflies in your stomach, that the barriers to entry to that is getting lower at a pace that we've never seen before. And the events that enable people to do that is growing by leaps and bounds.
It is. It's crazy to see it. How fast it's in a matter of years. I mean, like, I think that in the last 2 years, it doubled, if not almost tripled in size, which is great. And I've talked to a lot of guys that race Baja, and when we start, the conversation kind of comes up, and it's like, oh, well, so yeah, I kind of been thinking about doing that. I'm not sure. So there's, even a lot of crossover guys that are already used to racing out in the desert, are looking to like, well, what's this rally thing about, and get into that, so then it becomes like, okay, well, now you've got a guy that, can ride, respectably. Now he wants to learn how to navigate, and the opportunity to go out and do that has increased threefold. What's going on, guys? Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. All right. Are you looking to promote your brand to a worldwide audience on the podcast? Drop us a line at podcast@chasingwaypoints.com and let's talk. See what we can do about getting you some more ears for your company and getting the word out worldwide. Where before you didn't know where to go. There wasn't even. It's not an
underground event anymore where you can't find any information. It's like, you pick up the phone and there's a huge community of people that's ready to help you.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I think that's one of the big exciting things as well, is the fact that, it's not just if it's for the racer, but let's say you've got a 790 or 890 or 1290. There's so many adventure riders that's just bored of following a GPS line. And I maintain that it's way more dangerous to follow a GPS line than riding a road book. Way more dangerous, because it just doesn't give you the information you need. So you've got that segment of the market that want to try it. And then, as you say, you've got your LA to Barstow and your Baja legends and the people that are really good at racing, that's just tired of racing the same thing over and over again. And, it opens up a whole new world. You already have the bike. You just have to be open-minded to try something new. And I think we're going to see more and more of that happening in 2024. And hopefully, we can play a part in it. Your show does an amazing job at it. You are the point of contact for anybody that wants to get into rally and kind of the golden standard in the US. So, I mean, thank you so much for everything you do. And all the time you put in, because I know you put in a hell of a lot of time to do this. So, thank you for that. Because, I mean, if it wasn't for guys like you, normal guys like me wouldn't have a mouthpiece, nobody would listen to us. We would just be shouting into the nothingness.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the, at the event, preaching to the choir, right? The guys that are already discovered the rally and, that are already in the sport. So, yeah. And I mean, it goes, I mean, it's a two-way street. I mean, also what you've done for the sport in training and creating the events in your social media and everything that, you've exposed a lot of people to it, to be able to do that, including like things like with the Rally Tab project, to be able to create another pathway for people to get into the sport, not just the paper road book of before, and then the ICOs and the RNS units and all of this stuff. So there's, it's been with you. It's been really a two-way street, in growing this and getting exposure to the sport. You happen to have an influence on two major continents.
It's interesting, and I'm very thank you for that. That's that I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's it's going to be interesting to see the crossover, because for us, for South Africans, we have so many Dakar legends. That's one of the reasons why I grew up watching Dakar with my dad at the beginning of every year, and it was like, this is how your year starts. And I find it interesting, but I'm also excited about this crossover thing, because I really hope we can pull some guys from America to South Africa, and I really hope I can bring guys from South Africa to America and to Mexico, because we actually are so similar in so many ways. And I'm super excited for that part of the journey to unfold, because, I would love to get some of the top South African racers in Baja for the Baja Rally and put them against some of the best guys there and see how we do. It'd be a fun when we could do a country by country competition to see.
It's like
and, vice versa. So. Yeah, because look, one thing that's a fact is American racers are harder racers, and that's something that I've learned in the US, because you have a culture of Baja or rally or desert racing. That culture exists nowhere else. I mean, the closest thing that comes to it is Fink in Australia. And even there, it's not a culture. It's one race they do. But because of that, you can see it. And it's something that piqued my interest a lot in Dakar. Americans will never complain, or let's call it North Americans. I don't want to, but, people from the Americas will never complain when there's a roadbook issue, or whether there's, when they change the route, they're like, why did you change the route? A few years ago, there was that big thing where the trucks had churned up the road and all the racers were like, ooh, this is unsafe. And all the Americans are like, what are you guys talking about? Like, this is rally. The roadbook is there as a guide. And I think what has brought that up is that growing up as a desert racer, and you can see it by, Skylar, Ricky, Mason, like all the top guys that's in, like every single American that's racing in the Dakar is doing well, right? But they do well because of that hardcore desert racing background that no other Europeans can't get it. South Africans can't really get it. We just ride a lot of bikes. But if you grow up with that mentality of ride the terrain, ride what you can see, don't depend wholly on your roadbook. Your roadbook is there as a guide. That gives you a huge advantage above the guys like me or people that were taught that your roadbook is the Bible. If that rock isn't in the roadbook, then the roadbook's wrong. Like because we didn't grow up with that idea of desert racing. And I think I love that concept. And it's something that I'm learning on the US side and that I'm bringing to South Africa, especially in my own roadbook, saying that, guys, you have to ride the terrain first and the roadbook second. It's your ultimate responsibility. Yeah. So we're not going to change the route. It's down to your riding skill and then the navigation. And that's a different way of most Europeans don't look at it in that regard.
No. And I agree. And a lot of people, it's interesting. I talked to racers after that Dakar and they told me it's not, it wasn't any worse than the first couple of miles at any of the desert races here in the States. It wasn't that bad, but like you said, it's like if people aren't used to it, then they had a couple of offs of some of the riders, but the people that were used to riding in rough conditions based on what they can see and split between that and what the road book says, they did okay. And unfortunately it ruined some races up at the top because of them cutting the stage short. So, And it definitely did not benefit American racers, but that decision. But the other thing for me that I learned in America from the bigger, faster guys is that, you have to adjust your speed to the terrain. If the roadbook isn't that accurate, and if there's a lot of rocks and if there's a lot of rocks, it's your responsibility as the rider to go slower. You can't now go faster in an area that you're not able to ride. And that's valuable because, hearing from even top guys that, they also sometimes go slower because they pace themselves to the terrain. It's great advice, but people think of racing as just spinning it flat out and that's it. But I guess that again you have to finish first. You first have to finish. So exactly. That's what it comes down to. Exactly. Excellent. Okay, so let's see, what do we got planned next? When are you coming stateside again? What's your plan?
I will be training now in South Africa and I will be back stateside mid-January. Okay. So I will be working hard on my side to bring you guys good, relevant info on not just what I'm doing, but also as far as how the Dakar process is going. I will be keeping you guys up to date or informed about our discussions to get some points for the US rallies. That will take a bit of time because of Dakar happening right now. Yeah. But I am on it. I am busy with it, and I'm talking to various event organizers about that. And then, training-wise, and also just, the path forward. There's tons of things that's happened, people that have supported me or will be supporting me. So I definitely think in January I will kind of give you guys feedback as to, who's come on board to kind of, obviously Chasing Waypoints and you, Victor, as far as, you were the first one to say like, okay, I'll carry the story and I'll take this. So, you're sponsor number one in that regard. But, I definitely want us to kind of focus on, also the process of finding sponsorship is extremely difficult. And it's not that I'm a racer, so I'm not going to get sponsored for racing. So this will be a community effort. And, I definitely will let you guys know how that has happened and who's getting involved. We definitely have a lot of people that's willing to help in the process. So it'll be January. We'll look at what I'm going to do to qualify for Dakar, how I'm going to qualify for Dakar, and basically what I've done up till now, what team I'm going with, how did I secure that team? And we can also start looking into the cost of stuff because I have started paying. I have started buying stuff, which is scary. I flew with my Airways to South Africa and I was so scared that it's not going to make it here, but it did. So that's a whole separate story, but I have it here.
Very much so. Awesome. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think this is going to be a great story for everybody to tune into and really get, really get sink their teeth into something like, okay, this is what the actual undertaking is. We've seen it from a lot of different perspectives, previously, but not in detail and not with the new pitfalls, and including, like you mentioned, the new point system. They're not making it any easier. Whether it be the road book or the registration process.
And, Kira from Westex likes to say that, the ASO makes it the entire process as difficult as possible from the beginning. It's just like from the word go, everything is just as awkward and as difficult as possible. And that's, again, maybe it's to dissuade people from doing it because it is going to be damn difficult. And to kind of, weed people out. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I really hope I make it. I think for me, that's the thing is we have this thing, whereas, everybody, we always say I'm going to Dakar. And again, thanks to your great way of looking at things, because you always see things in a different light. It's not, I'm not going to Dakar. It's, can I get to Dakar? Am I going to make it? So, and that would be, like I said, will be an effort of everybody together. And I would like to do that. I'd like us to, as a rally community, actually do this as a project together, as opposed to, Willem's going to Dakar. It's anybody can go to Dakar. But if we do it as a community and if we build a roadmap for future generations and for future people to make it easier, I actually think it'll be the same as what has happened with rally, right? At first it was really difficult to get information, and now it's much easier. Yeah. So if we can put that out there for future riders, it might stimulate more people being able to go, because they'll have a realistic expectation and a roadmap or a set of guidelines as to what they have to do, so that it doesn't just stay a dream and so that it actually becomes a reality. Yeah.
So you can actually execute on this and have that recipe out and make sure that, the questions get answered, because you can't pick up the phone with the ASO like everybody else does, January 21st or the day the rally's over, and try and get all this information on how to do it. So this is going to be valuable, not just for North America, but honestly, the world. Hey, this is how you do it. This is the current process. This is the trials and tribulations to get to there.
And I think you said something very important. I know we're wrapping up, but if any of the listeners have specific questions, I think the more listener feedback we have, the better, because, effectively, I will be at the mercy, or I'll be of service to the rally community. That's the point. So, if you guys want to know something or are curious about something or want myself and Victor to explore something specific, let us know, and we can build around that, because we want to know what you you guys, the listeners, are also thinking.
Yes, exactly.
And what you're curious about. So,
yeah, awesome. Very, very well said.
Cool.
And that is the plan. Make sure we get the questions answered.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I'll definitely keep you abreast of those. So every time I close my eyes, there's a different one. So,
well, as long as they're dreams and not nightmares, that's the plan.
That's it. It's getting there. It's getting there. Well, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Victor. I really appreciate it. I know this was a big one coming, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope you have a great Sunday. It's Sunday there, right?
Yeah, Sunday.
It's now Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Very nice. Well, enjoy the rest of the day. And,
thank you.
We will.
December in South Africa is crazy. It's like we take off from the 15th of December to the 15th of January. The whole country comes to a standstill. People say December is a feeling. It's not a month.
Interesting.
And it's just like everybody lays down tools. And it's just socializing and family. You have guests at home every night. It's a huge cultural thing. So because everybody's traveling to see their family. So after this call, tonight I've got like 6 or 7 different friends, from lifelong friends that they're all traveling to different places. But because I'm kind of in the middle of the country, they're just kind of sleeping over on their journey.
You're the meeting point.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll drink some beers and tell some stories. Oh, actually, I'm actually not drinking beer at the moment. That's another episode. It's just like the whole physical preparation. We could do a whole episode of that. But, I started physically preparing on Thanksgiving because it's like there's always going to be a reason to not be disciplined if it comes to that stuff. So that's a whole different situation, but it's weird because in my culture there's a lot of eating, so people don't just like, oh, Willem is getting ready for Dakar. There's more like, something's wrong with Willem, he's not eating. What's wrong with the guy? Must be depressed.
I know. It's the wrong season to start a diet.
But that's the thing, it's always the wrong season. That's why I was like, no, I'm starting right now. And so beer, but I still drink other beverages, so we'll see.
Less calories and less mostly calories, more effective.
Exactly.
Excellent, sir.
Great, man.
Enjoy the day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate this, man. Have a great evening. Chat soon.
Likewise. See ya.
Bye.
All right, so there you have it. That was Willem Avenant, and that is the big announcement. Willem working on the recipe on the road book to get to the Dakar Rally in 2025. So absolutely excited. When we talked about this idea initially and what we were going to be doing and what he was looking to do, I was like, yes, we need to have that recipe out there. There is no cookbook for rally, but maybe we could get pretty close to it. I don't know. How many other references of outside of rally could we do? I don't know. If you got a good one and you're on Spotify, drop it in the Q&A section. If you're on any of the other platforms and have questions about the Dakar Rally or any comments or anything that you would like to see or hear on the show, absolutely get on there. Hit me up on Instagram, DM me, and then we'll get your questions answered. If I don't respond, because I only recently found out that I had a bunch of messages stuck in one of the like spam boxes or whatever, I'm not a pro. I do more podcast audio than I do actually posting on Instagram, which we're going to change that for 2024. But if you haven't gotten a response, jump on one of the pictures, send me a comment. I will see that, and then we will get it answered. Anyway, we're wrapping up the year, guys. Stay tuned. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. NAR files, as well as a chat with the Mason Klein's parents, or the Kleins, I should say, and talking a lot about his Dakar effort for this year, which was put together at the very, very end, with the thanks being to one of their major sponsors, Effective Soft. So I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes. Let's keep it going. We got 2024 coming up and then 2025 right behind it. So a lot of big things happening, and I'll look forward to bringing them to you guys. So remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Looking forward to our next one coming up. Remember, if you are out riding, do not forget to tag us at Chasing Waypoints. Hashtag Chasing Waypoints. And if you haven't already, get on over to the website. Get signed up for the newsletter, the Bivouac. North America's rally raid and adventure riding newsletter. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's find out what you guys up to. Let's get you featured. If you're a brand and looking to get supported, get some eyeballs, get some ears on your business. Absolutely, hit us up. Send us a message at podcast@Chasing Waypoints. But anyway, that is a wrap. Remember, shiny side up. See you guys.